Welcome to our webinar. I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us early in the morning here in St. Louis, or probably late in the evening around the world. And so we want to take some time today to talk about our Master of Science in Customer Analytics program. But before we get started, I just want to let everyone know that participants have been muted so that we can reduce background noise. So if you are having trouble hearing us, please use the raise your hand function or send a message in the chat box. Also, use the chat box or the Q&A function to enter your questions. We really want to take the time to be able to answer your questions about the curriculum in this webinar. So please enter those into the Q&A box and we will address those throughout or at the end of the session. And I want to mention that we are lucky enough to be joined today by Seethu, who is the director of the Master of Science in Customer Analytics program. And so without wasting any time, I'm going to turn it over to him to start and introduce himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Welcome to you all, and thanks for joining us this morning. Let me quickly introduce myself. As what you're seeing in front of you says, my name is Seetharaman. I'm a professor of marketing, and I am the academic director of the Master of Science in Customer Analytics program. This program was launched 3 years back. We have graduated 2 classes of students. The third cohort is finishing their second semester of the 3-semester program. And I joined Washington University in 1998 after getting my PhD at Cornell University. In terms of my research, I work with data, big data. A lot of my early research was in the scanner data domain, meaning I analyzed the transactional data given by customers at point of sale, to advise the companies on how to set prices, design promotions, and so on. So therefore, it's a natural transition from the kind of work I do to managing a program like this, where you're taught how to use analytics for better decision making, especially looking at the kind of data that are emerging these days in social media and so on. Okay, so let me give you an overview of this program before I dive into the details of the curriculum. The Master of Science in Customer Analytics, MSCA, is the newest addition to our specialized master's programs. So we have a whole slew of programs, in finance, accounting, and so on. So this is the most recent addition, and we introduced this for 2 reasons. One, to address the booming demand across industries in how do we become more enlightened decision makers using data, and 2, the natural expertise of the faculty here, mostly in the marketing area, but also in other related areas like statistics, economics, computer science, and so on, is in the domain of predictive modeling, using data for building insights using econometrics, machine learning, and so on for decision making. So this program, which I'm proud to say was STEM designated. We did not ask for this, but the moment we launched and sent our proposal in, we got STEM designation. And that was because the curriculum was designed to reflect courses that had enough science and technology content that it was automatically STEM designated. So this was the inspiration for a couple of our other master's programs also applying for STEM designation and getting them. Now, I would call this program applied in orientation, meaning we don't do kind of the theory of predictive modeling or machine learning so much as, what kind of data exists in what industry with what kind of company, and what does predictive modeling mean in the context of that data. So every course that is taught here at the Olin Business School as part of the curriculum has that vantage point in mind while presenting the course content. So we start with a business problem, talk about the kind of data that can be useful to answer that problem, and then apply the statistical and machine learning and data mining technologies in the context of that data. So our interest is not in giving the theory of the analysis so much as telling you how to apply the analysis for profitable decision making. So applied learning is a cornerstone of this program. Now, the third bullet that you see on the slide is really, in my mind, the pride and joy of our MSCA program compared to a lot of competitor programs around the country, which is we have close collaboration with industry, which pays off in a couple of ways for students such as yourselves. So when we come to the curriculum, I'll talk a little more about, but we work with companies and not just telling our students what kind of opportunities are out there, hiring students as interns, as full-time employees after graduation. But during your time here itself, industry collaborates with us in terms of sponsoring projects. So you can work on real-time projects with real-time data to apply your classroom learnings. More on this to come. Okay, so now let me do a deep dive into the curriculum. So the MSCA program is a 3-semester program. So for all of you, the program starts in the fall semester of this year. So you will be coming in the month of August. And even though this slide kind of gives you the actual curricular coursework, but before the fall semester starts, you're going to be doing what is called pre-coursework in the orientation week. So let me briefly speak to that, even though you don't see this on the slide. Coming in, you're going to have a 2-day refresher course in statistics. So it's called Basic Statistics using SPSS programming, because SPSS as a programming language is integrated into some of the coursework. So that 2-day refresher, pre-course orients you to, the statistics that you might remember from college and high school, and tell you how to implement some of the basic statistics in the SPSS environment. And then you do a 2-day course, also a pre-course, called Introduction to R Programming. So the R programming language has become very popular in recent years for 2 reasons. One, it's a very powerful language, and 2, it's free. It doesn't cost you a dime. And a lot of free programming code is available online for your use. So therefore, the community of R programmers is just growing exponentially each month, really. So therefore, many of our faculty also use the R programming language in their coursework. So therefore, again, we expose you to the basics of R programming in this 2-day pre-coursework. So across these 4 days, you're just kind of getting an introduction to statistics, SPSS, and R programming. Now, beyond that, we offer a 3rd pre-course, which is optional. You can choose to do it if you like. And that is a Coursera course, which is taught by 3 faculty from the Wharton School at Penn, which is called Introduction to Marketing. And this course we make available, we pay Coursera. It's not a free course for any students who would like to sign up for that. It will take you a couple of days to consume the content. And we encourage students with no business background. By that I mean neither your undergraduate degree nor your previous graduate degree, if you have one, is in the business domain. For example, if you don't know marketing yet, then this is a good and quick way of understanding the essentials of marketing. And because they are taught by senior faculty at the Wharton School, the content which I have personally sampled is just right in terms of pre-course work. So that's something that you may end up doing before the semester starts. So now let's dive into the semester. The first semester, which is fall 2017, is mostly foundational coursework. So what do I mean by that? You have very little wiggle room in terms of choosing coursework that, let's say, closely meets your needs in terms of what you're expecting to be when you finish this program. So most of you are going to be doing the exact same slate of courses in your first semester. So that's what I mean by foundational coursework. So your first semester of coursework is almost entirely set for all of you. Your second and third semesters have a lot of wiggle room. You can mix and match courses as you see fit. So now let me take you through these foundational courses. So there are 2 columns on top, fall A and fall B. So here we work under the mini semester system. So the A mini semester runs for 6 weeks, and so does the B mini semester. So in the A mini semester, you're doing 2 courses, database design and SQL, which introduces you to, what are databases, how do you design them, how do you put them together in order to be amenable to predictive modeling and analysis later. So the first kind of thing that you would do as a data scientist or as a customer analyst is to be working with a database. So the first order of business is to build comfort in database design. And SQL is a very popular environment for managing databases. So that's why this course is set in the SQL language. So that's a half semester course that is mandatory. It's a required course that you do in fall A. Another course that you do contemporaneously is marketing research. So this is a course which of course is a marketing course, which is also listed as an elective for MBA students. But the version of marketing research that you take is a specialized master's program version. So it is customized to your needs, even though a course with somewhat different orientation is offered to MBA students. So in this course, you are taught three essential things. What are the kinds of marketing research that rely on data, and what kind of decisions do they inform? So the three kind of aspects of this course, the first aspect is qualitative research using focus groups. The second aspect is quantitative research using surveys and questionnaires. How do you design a consumer survey? How do you analyze the responses you get from respondents, and so on? And the third aspect is experiments. So how does an experiment inform the research in a uniquely different way than, say, a survey questionnaire? So this course runs through here are the three commonly used ways of conducting marketing research in practice. Then we move to the fall B mini semester. So again, in a 6-week mini semester, you're expected to do 3 courses, the top 3 that you see there. The first one is called Data Analysis for Brand Management. So this course, unlike, say, the marketing research course that you did in fall A, deals with secondary data. So what do I mean by that? Remember, I mentioned I have done a lot of work on scanner data. Now that is the classic example of secondary data. So if there is a retail store that transacts with customers, like, say, Target, then on a daily basis, every transaction that's ringing up at the checkout counter is feeding into a database. So this course deals with, given transactional databases like that, how do you analyze them to figure out how price sensitive consumers are, how much they respond to promotions, and so on. So the course is designed to let you estimate metrics like price elasticity of demand, advertising elasticity of demand, and so on. The next course, called Advanced Marketing Research, is an extension of the course called Marketing Research that we discussed earlier. So in this second course, which follows up on the first one, you're exposed to more advanced techniques to analyze survey data and experimental data. You are exposed to the basic statistical tools in the first one. So the advanced version of that speaks to what are called multivariate statistical tools. So some of the tools that you will pick up in this course are, say, factor analysis, cluster analysis, conjoint analysis, and so on. These are all industry staples used to design products, set prices for services, and so on. The third course, called Managerial Communications, is, as the title says, a course designed to impart, how to communicate your actionable insights that emerge from analysis to decision makers. So these days, it's one thing to be comfortable analyzing data. It's quite another to be able to communicate, your analysis results to managers. So this course kind of imparts those and again, this is mandatory because we believe data scientists really need to be good communicators to be competitive in this marketplace. So that finishes the required slate of courses in the fall semester. You do see one more course in the right column called Quantitative Decision-Making. That is taught by one of our operations management faculty, and that deals with how to optimize marketing variables.
such as prices and promotions. So it's a course that does not deal with data so much as tell you how to use linear programming, quadratic programming, and techniques like that from the operations research domain to optimize marketing variables. Let me tell you one more thing before moving on to the next slide. So if you just move down under the required bucket, which is sitting kind of in the bottom part of this table, you see two courses. The first is Predictive Analytics for Business Decision Making. Now, what is that? So that course is really about data mining tools. So these are tools like classification trees, decision trees, artificial neural networks, logistic regression. So these are all from the computer science domain, but we apply those tools for business decision making. So the course is taught by one of our business school faculty, and it's a very popular course, uniquely offered to the MSCA students. We do not let other students, take this course. So that course is about the application of data mining for business decision making. And the last one, marketing strategy, is about how do firms make decisions in a competitive marketplace where they are competing with other firms, but in a manner as to exploit data and analytics. So in this course, some of the nuts and bolts that you're picking up in the other courses, which are more tools based, really come to life in a business setting. So this course has a very strategic orientation, as the title says. So there is a simulation software called MarkStrat, which is used here, where you're actually making decisions every week in competing with 2 or 3 more competitors. So let me finish here. The rest are all electives. We'll come back to that time permitting. Let's move on. Okay, so this is the second semester, the spring semester. And again, let's look at spring A. So digital marketing requires little more explanation. So these days, digital media and analyzing social data is important for business decision making. So this talks about what's unique about digital as opposed to traditional bricks and mortar space for decision making. So that's required for you in spring A. In spring B, you see a course called Analytics Driven Brand Management. So what is that? So if you remember in fall B, we talked about a course called Data Analysis for Brand Management just a few minutes back, where I said this course works with scanner data, tells you how to estimate, say, a price elasticity of demand for a product. Now, this course follows up on that and says, hey, if you have a price elasticity of demand for your brand, what do you do with it? And the answer is set a price for your brand. So this course gets into really decision making. Given the metrics from the other course that you did in fall, how do you actually make decisions such as pricing, advertising, promotional planning, sales force management, and so on. So that's what this course deals with. Now let's move to the middle part of the table, where under required, you see a course called Customer Analytics using probability models. So in a nutshell, that course, again, which is required, deals with what is called customer lifetime value, CLV. Now that is a metric that many firms are using, especially in financial services, in a gaming context like the Harrah's casinos and so on, where each customer's lifetime value is really managed using marketing levers. So here again, some of the predictive modeling that you've been learning in the other courses are used to manage customers as if they are assets, instead of thinking of, let's say, a product as an asset. And for the, okay, let's move slightly a few bullets down and look at the course called Intensive Industry Project. That is again required, and you can either do it in the spring semester 2018, or you can postpone it for the fall semester of 2018, which would be your last semester. Now, what is this course? Remember I said the pride and joy of our MSCA program is industry collaboration. So this is the course where that concept comes to life. So this is not a classroom-based course. It's a full semester course where you're working with a real client under faculty supervision. So each student is assigned to a 5-member student team, which is then attached to an industry client, and you're working on a specific client problem for the entire semester, where the client opens up their database to you, typically customer data, and the faculty advises you from week to week on how to analyze the data, how to get actionable insights, and so on and so forth. And it culminates by your going to the client organization. Sometimes it involves, going across the country You might fly to California at client expense and make a presentation at the client boardroom where you're presenting the actionable insights, and sometimes they want to know the nuts and bolts of your analysis. All of this is agreed upon upfront and culminates in the form of that deliverable of a presentation and a report. And these things work out fabulously well. Sometimes the client is so delighted with what they got that they make internship offers and keep you in mind for a possible job offer when you finish and so on. Let's move to the next slide for now. Okay, so in the summer semester, if you want to do more online learning on your own, we are happy to sponsor you for some Coursera-like courses that are listed there. But this is entirely optional, and we'll remit the tuition to the company that runs these courses if you're so interested. But we expect you to do a good internship during summer. So the internship search would have happened in spring, and it really culminates in that summer. So let's move into your last semester, fall 2018. So under required, you see 2 courses. The second one I already discussed in the previous fall semester. So if you choose not to do it in your first semester, you can do it in your third semester, is all I'm saying. So this is Quantitative Decision-Making. The other one, called Empirical Methods in Business, is a course that really is offered to our PhD students, but we make it available to you because we think the rigors of the MSCA program dictate that you can handle this course and it will be hugely useful to your needs. So what is this course about? It's about what are called structural econometric methods, especially things like instrumental variables, causal modeling, and so on. Now, what does that mean? So suppose you're trying to understand how price influences sales for a product. Now, what you must keep in mind is real-world prices have been set using some business rules. So therefore, these prices have not been set using an experimental design. So they are what we call endogenous. So these methods tell you how to correct for that. These prices have some specific properties that make the influence of price on sales kind of difficult to estimate. So how do you use some cutting-edge statistical techniques to account for those properties? So that's what that course is about. So I think I've kind of given you a lay of the land in terms of all the required courses. And across the 3 semesters, there's a whole slew of elective courses that you can take. It's entirely up to your preferences. And I'm happy to sit with you as an advisor and tell you what each course is about when you come here. But students, depending on their interests, kind of self-select into various courses that are listed there. And depending on your Q&A requirements, I can answer, 1 or more of what those courses are about. But as a broad brush, I think I've covered everything that I needed to. So I'll pause for questions at this point.
Seethu, can you tell us a little bit more about the CCABD before we get into questions?
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks for reminding me, Jessica. So in addition to being the academic director of the MSCA program, I also direct a center of excellence here at the Olin Business School called CCABD. That stands for Center for Customer Analytics and Big Data. The mission of the center is to engage the expertise of the Olin Business School and connect it to the needs of the marketplace. So companies bring real-time projects to us, some of which are managed by faculty, some of which are managed by our doctoral students, and many of which are sourced to the MSCA students such as yourselves. So remember the intensive industry project that I mentioned, the experiential course where you work with a client as part of a team. Now that project is typically generated by the CCABD. So we have an advisory board of 9 companies who come and advise us on our MSCA curriculum, what are their pressing problems, what kind of data are they working with, where do they need advice, and so on. And some of the companies in our board right now are companies like MasterCard, Wells Fargo Wealth Management, Teradata, a data warehousing company, Nestle Purina Pet Care, Schnucks, which is the largest supermarket store here in St. Louis and all of Missouri, in fact, and so on. So we have 9 really good companies who are sitting as advisory board members. So we connect you with these companies as well. And this word cloud kind of tells you what are all the topics that might be amenable to these experiential learning projects. So we get projects in one-to-one marketing, promotional planning, new product diffusion in the marketplace, projects that involve management of customer lifetime value, CLV, and so on and so on.
Great. Thank you so much. So does anyone have any questions at this point? I know one question that we get quite frequently is just considering a pure data analytics program versus the MSCA here at Olin. What would you say to that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So we called our program Customer Analytics after a lot of thought. Many similar programs across the country either call themselves Business Analytics or Data Science. These are the two commonly used terms. Now, the data science programs typically tend to be housed in the engineering school, or it's a mishmash of engineering and business and so on. So it's very broad-based. So we thought it doesn't have as much focus as a program that eventually got our name. Now, business analytics is somewhat closer in scope, but still it straddles a wider domain of subject areas within a business school. Now, customer analytics drives the focus, or its own focus, as the term says, on analytics that are customer focused. The customer could be an end consumer or a business customer, but any problem that a business deems as customer facing that can therefore be answered using customer level data. So that's the focus, and that makes most of the faculty participation in this program to be from the marketing area, which is the central customer facing function. And we of course list many computer science courses, and we work in fact with some computer science faculty. So those courses are more tools oriented, but to the extent that some of these sections are targeting our MSCA students, they have this customer orientation as well. Now that said, one question that might come up is, hey, does this make this degree program very narrow compared to business analytics? And my answer to that is absolutely not. All the tools that you're picking up in this course are versatile enough that they apply even outside customer analytics, even if it's, let's say, analytics for inventory management. Many of these tools apply there. In fact, one of our experiential projects that we are working with in the current semester is a project about sensors in a very expensive equipment, which are firing every few nanoseconds in terms of giving their readings. And the team is working on how to get leading edge or diagnostic measures of failure, equipment failure that could come later. So that's not necessarily a customer facing problem, but the tools that are needed for that problem come from the customer analytics domain. So I approved that project as a very useful project for our student team. So therefore, you are preparing yourself for a wider slate of possible careers, but to keep the program well managed and focused, we have called it customer analytics.
Very good. So we did a couple quick questions, and we'll be conscious of everyone's time. So we'll try to get through a couple of these questions kind of quickly. But do you have any recommendations of some books or other form of modeling concepts to help this before the start of the program?
Oh, absolutely. There are some great books that have come out recently. The first one is a book that came out 6 years back, but I would strongly encourage students. It's good bedtime reading. It's not very technical, but it relates to what you will be learning in the program. And that is called Thinking Fast and Slow. Once again, it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It's written by a Princeton professor called Daniel Kahneman. He's a professor, retired professor of psychology, and he won a Nobel Prize in economics. Yes, I said that right. He's a professor of psychology who won a Nobel Prize in economics about 15 years back. So that book talks about, hey, the interesting aspect of analytics is who you're modeling are many times seemingly irrational, the consumers. So customer analytics is about applying very scientific, rational principles to people who are inherently irrational and perhaps even unscientific. So it's a very interesting read. It summarizes a lot of cool research from the academic domain. So I would recommend that. A second book I would recommend is a book written by the guy who runs the 538 blog. Some of you may have heard of him. His name is Nate Silver. And the book is called The Signal and the Noise. Once again, The Signal and the Noise. So this book is a little more recent than the first one. It's a couple of years old. An excellent book on what are big data, what are unique about big data compared to non-big data that we worked with until about 5 years back, and what are some of the pitfalls of big data. more than asking how can they be used for effective decision making by firms like Amazon and Facebook and Google, this book interestingly focuses on what are some of the pitfalls of big data. Very, very interesting read. Again, doesn't get into the mathematics so much. It gives a very good overview of what analytics in the big data space mean. So if you read these two books coming in, I think that's a very, very good place to start. I can recommend other books by email, but these are the two I'll mention for now.
Great. And should they consider a specific order when they're planning some of those courses?
Well, yes and no. For the fall semester, I said the courses are almost set in stone, so they have little choice. But for the spring and the second fall, they have quite a bit of flexibility in how to mix and match. I strongly encourage them to come and talk to me. Talk to Dave McKee, the Associate Director of our Specialized Masters programs. So he's very, very good at giving you insights on how to order the courses across semesters. But there are some questions for which he will refer you to me. But I am available anyways once you come here to, given your career interests, advise you on which courses to do in what order.
Great. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone for your time. If you have additional questions, please send them to olingradadmissions@wusel.edu, and we can direct you to Seethu if needed on those questions, or to Dave as well, who's also here in our office. So we want to thank you. Thank you for your time, Seethu, and thank all of you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you in just a few short months. Bye-bye.
Likewise. Bye-bye.